What is now a busy bridge, bustling with the noise from the traffic and people, was once a witness to a bloody battle that ended in 262 BC and was fought between the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka and the Kalinga ruler Raja Anatha Padmanabha. Hundreds of thousands lost their lives in this fierce battle, and the Daya River was rumored to have run red due to all of the bloodshed for weeks. In the words of Ramesh Prasad Mohapatra in his publication, The Military History of Orissa, no war in the history of India has been as important either for its intensity or for its results as the Kalinga War of Ashoka. No wars in the years of human history have changed the heart of the victor from one of gruesome cruelty to that of exemplary piety as this one. The history of the world may find out only a few wars to its credit which may be equal to this war, and not a single one that would be greater than this. The political history of mankind is really a history of wars, and no war has ended with so successful a mission of the peace for its entire war-torn humanity as the War of Kalinga. So true is what's said by Mr. Mohapatra. No one could have imagined that such a violent war with so much bloodshed would be followed by an era of tranquility, enlightenment, and peace. This is the story of King Ashoka, from destruction to Dhamma. Dhamma is the essential teaching of the Buddha. The saying Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami means take refuge in the Buddha's teachings. Dhamma or Dharma means the universal truth or peace, which is the linchpin of Buddhist teachings. It is difficult to associate the havoc and destruction caused by King Ashoka in the Kalinga War to be followed by intense remorse. This led him to devote the rest of his life to nonviolence and to victory through Dhamma. He preached that it is conquest through Dharma that was the real conquest in life and not the conquest through violence. And now let's talk about Ashoka's early years as an emperor. Following Bindusara's death in 272 BC, Ashoka attacked Pataliputra while also defeating and killing all of his brothers. His crowning ceremony took place 4 years after his ascent to the throne. Buddhist literature describes Ashoka as a cruel, ruthless, and a bad-tempered ruler. He was named Chanda Ashoka, meaning Ashoka the Terrible, due to all of his disposition at that time. He was attributed with the building Ashoka's Hell, a torture chamber manned by an executioner to punish offenders. True, to get the title of Chanda, you'd have to be the most gruesome, ghastly leader of all, which was exactly what Ashoka was. Ashoka was known to others as a great military strategist, and his army was extremely powerful. It had an organized chain of command, and even detailed drawings were sketched, describing to the soldiers what to do. His military personnel was well paid and trained, adding to his outstanding power. But Ashoka had an even more formidable weapon. His war elephants were what led him to many victories in the past. With the elephants' big bodies, they were able to do many things, including destroying buildings, trampling opposing armies, and causing havoc. Many armies used war elephants too, but none could stand up against Ashoka's 9,000, which had to go through the same training as his soldiers.
Since most of his brothers belonged to the royal family and to a higher caste, Ashoka was not given a fair deal, and so he did not live in extravagance and all. So there was always this kind of an axe to grind against his brothers. He also found that since he was such a good warrior, most of his half-brothers were jealous of him. A story goes that Ashoka, to get the throne after Bindusara's death, he killed most of his male rivals, and the figure varies from 99 half-brothers to 6 half-brothers, except he only spared his full brother, who was Tisa. And he killed also many loyalist officials of his eldest brother, who was called Sushima. Sushima also Ashoka killed at the eastern gates of the imperial city of Pataliputra. And the story goes that he roasted Sushima alive in the moat. So there are a lot of stories which go to show how violent Ashoka was before he became a king.
Ashoka's final military campaign was against the prosperous state of Kalinga, located on the Bay of Bengal. Kalinga had control of all of the country's southern trade routes, and this was Ashoka's final competition remaining in India. When the state of Kalinga was prompted by the Mauryan Empire to surrender, they refused, and thus began the Kalinga War. In 261 BC, Ashoka set out to launch an assault on Kalinga. Of course, Ashoka being Ashoka, planned this war very well. A planned system of roads crossed the empire, allowing soldiers and civilians to travel without difficulty. Ashoka had inserted ponds all around the paths, providing resources to soldiers. Without these, in a matter of days, they would have died. A general took the lead, while the emperor himself was surrounded in bodyguards, assuring his safety. All war animals marched in, followed by militia and then soldiers in wagons carrying food. Against so many war elephants, the Klingons were no match. It was an easy win for Ashoka. It is said that 100,000 soldiers from the Kalinga army were killed in this devastating war, and Ashoka, too, lost 10,000 of his own men. For miles and miles, houses smoldered, crops were destroyed, and corpses strewn on the pathways, and blood ran into the Dai River, a ghastly sight that imprinted itself on Ashoka's psyche. Ashoka, realizing the devastation he had caused, was abjectly remorseful. Looking at the destruction of Kalinga and the wails and cries of the living who had lost their loved ones piercing his ears, Ashoka decided to renounce his violent ways and wholeheartedly embrace the paths of Dhamma. He brought to his Mauryan Empire an era of peace and prosperity. He made Buddhism the state religion and propagated the message of peace and right action all throughout his kingdom and beyond. All of our knowledge of Ashoka's rule was presented on rock edicts and pillars scattered all throughout his kingdom. They all speak of peaceful living filled with giving and love. His rock edicts very clearly spread his philosophy of ruling through persuasion and not law. In his last edict, probably inscribed in 242 BC, Ashoka wrote, "The advancement of Dhamma amongst men has been achieved through two means, laws and persuasion. But one of these two, laws, has been less effective, and persuasion more so." Specifically trained officials called Dhamma Mahamatas toured the empire regularly to assess the views of the people and to instruct them in the meaning of Dhamma. He built thousands of stupas and other monuments which still stand today. During Ashoka's reign, he built universities, hospitals, irrigation systems, and promoted trade, all to make the people prosperous.
He puts out medicinal plants, that he builds wells, that he supports the old and the poor, that he just wants to spread a kind of welfare throughout the whole of the realm that he's leading. Dharma has a nice implication to it because it also has this implication of that's the order of things. It means that it's natural to be good and ethical in society rather than that it's something you have to struggle for.
After Ashoka's 40th year on the throne, Ashoka breathed his last at the age of 72. Ashoka left behind him an era of a well-unified and peaceful Mauryan Empire. As in the words of H.G. Wells, "In the history of the world, there have been thousands of kings and emperors who've called themselves their highnesses, their majesties, and their exalted majesties, and so on. They shone for a brief moment and as quickly disappeared. But Ashoka shines and shines brightly like a bright star even unto this day." King Ashoka also left behind him an amazing legacy. He was one of the first rulers who rejected military conquest in favor of spreading a philosophy of nonviolence and respect for others. Ashoka's edicts and proclamations written on rock and stone pillars reveal him to have been a surprisingly forward-thinking monarch. He turned a tragic event like the Kalinga War into a resounding triumph by building his empire on peace, love, harmony, and prosperity. In fact, so great is his influence on modern-day India. His symbol of Dharma, the Ashoka Chakra, is an everlasting part of India's national flag. From a gruesome destructive war to a peaceful and unified empire remembered with the chakra of peace in the national flag. This is the story of King Ashoka, from destruction to Dhamma.